Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are having a fine and dandy Thursday.
Hi
We're just
everyone. Well,
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say welcome to another Tech Pod event. We're very happy to have you guys here.
Yes, and we're just gonna wait a couple minutes for people to start rolling in. But in the meantime, usually I like to play a song so that it's not just dead silence while we're waiting for people.
Yeah, I messaged you on Discord about that. I was like, "Hey, Vicky, you always play nice music.
Thanks.
Play some of your music."
Do you have any recommendations? What should I play?
I honestly don't like. Lately, I haven't really been listening to any music. That's so sad to say, just because I've been so overwhelmed with school and stuff. So I don't know what's in. Does the audience have any recommendations?
Yes.
We love audience recommendations.
We do love audience recommendations. Do you guys have any recommendations for songs? Leave it in the chat and I'll play it. Preferably rated PG because last time we played Popstar and that was interesting.
No recommendations so far. We have a shy audience.
Let's see.
What do you usually? Oh,
Blackpink. Okay, which Blackpink song? Maybe some light, nice lo-fi. Oh, this link wasn't in the Luma? Okay. Interesting. Joseph, can you send out an email for everybody who registered on Luma with the YouTube link? Yes. So while this is happening, okay, I'm just gonna. Maybe Serena was talking about ice cream. I'm not sure. But in the meantime, I will show you guys something. So at the beginning of all these events, we like to encourage people to make a post on LinkedIn because I think building your personal brand is always beneficial to you in the long run. Oh, Pretty Savage is a good one. Okay. So I'm going to screen share real quick and show you guys why you guys should make a post on LinkedIn. And also I'll be sharing with you guys a spreadsheet that you guys can put your posts in. Let me know if it's like too loud or not, the music. But I'm gonna go ahead and share the spreadsheet with you guys first. If I can get the link to share it. Sorry, it's taking a little bit of time. Okay. All right. I'm gonna post it in the chat for you guys. So feel free to go on the spreadsheet. And what will happen for here is if you guys want to make a post about your learnings after this event is over, make sure you leave the link on the spreadsheet. And also leave like a short, like leave your information here, leave your email, your LinkedIn profile, because let's say you want to get a job at Salesforce, right? Or even just any like business role in general in tech, like all these people on this spreadsheet are probably also looking for the very same thing. And so think about it, like you can grow your network by a lot just by utilizing this single spreadsheet. And in addition, let's see. Just share my screen with you guys. Okay. And just as like an example, I made this one post a while back about like our product marketing intern event. And if you take a look, so our speakers are from Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce. And the people that ended up viewing my post are from Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, Facebook, which was not even one of the companies, Cisco. So this is like really interesting, right? Like think about it. If you want to work at one of these companies, like these people could very well be full-time employees that are viewing your posts. And then in addition to that, let me just pull up Richard real quick. Like this is an example of a post that somebody made after they went to our event, and this was our product manager event. They tagged TechPod, they tagged the panelist, and these panelists are also all PMs or PM interns too. And then they ended up reacting to the post. So now their entire network sees this post, and I'm sure their entire network is also filled with PMs or also aspiring PMs. So just things to keep in mind. But yeah, with that being said, I think Joseph was able to send out that email, hopefully. But yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna stop screen sharing. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna give a quick intro of myself, and then Yusra can also give a quick intro of herself. Welcome. If you guys are new here, I'm Vicky. I'm currently a senior at UC Berkeley, and I am the co-founder of TechPod along with Joseph, who will show up at the panel in just a little bit. But this is one of our many, many events where we show students, where we bring on interns from large tech companies and basically let you guys know on the inside deets about how they were able to land their internships at these large tech companies and how you can do it too. Yeah. Do you want to also introduce yourself, Yusra?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I'm Yusra, and I'm a senior at San Jose State University studying marketing. And this is my first time moderating an event, so I'm excited and nervous. But yeah, the way I found TechPod was because I'm interested in the business side of tech, especially with like marketing, sales, HR. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this community, and it's been very great so far. And thank you all for being here.
Awesome. And Jacqueline, I'm majoring in environmental economics. Let's see. All right, so we're going to bring on the panelists now. And they will be introducing themselves as well. And I will be hopping off, and Yusra will be taking over. So I'm going to just add everybody to the panel. There's Joseph, there's Simrah, and if I can scroll down. Oh.
Hey everyone. How's it
Sorry,
going?
some minor technical difficulties. And Cristina. All right. So hope you guys have a great panel, and I'm going to hop off for now.
Okay, see you later, Vicky.
Okay, welcome guys. Welcome Cristina, Simrah, and TechPod's one and only Joseph. Thank you guys for being here. We're so excited to have you, and I'm sure the audience is just as excited. I know, especially for me, like Salesforce is my dream company, so been really trying hard to apply and like get in this recruiting season. So to kickstart, let's just have some introductions. Just do a quick introduction about what school do you go to, what major, and just one fun fact. Let's start with Joseph.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Joseph. I am a senior at the University of Michigan, and I intern at Salesforce as a business operations intern this summer. And fun fact, I am also the co-founder of TechPod, and it's nice to be a panelist on my own panel and not have to worry about anything else. So yeah, super excited to be here.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay, now we can do Simrah.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Simrah. I'm based out of Toronto, and I was a Salesforce Business Development Associate intern for this upcoming summer, so this past summer, summer 2020, and I go to school at Ryerson out of Toronto. My fun fact is that I'm currently spending my last semester in Dubai, so in the United Arab Emirates. My parents are based here, and yeah, I'm having a blast.
Awesome. Nice to meet you. And then Cristina.
Hey everyone, I am Cristina. I am currently a senior at Carnegie Mellon, and I'm majoring in professional writing with an additional major in international relations and politics. So really far away from tech. And my fun fact is my hometown, Brownsville, Texas, is a 15-minute drive from Mexico.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, welcome once again, and thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and get started with the questions. We have 6 questions for you today, and then we'll go into the audience questions. So in the meantime, if the audience can please put in any questions that they have into the chat, and we'll get to those in a bit. So to kickstart, the first question is, so what interests and or previous experiences made you decide to apply for an internship at Salesforce? And anyone can go ahead and start off.
I can start off if that's okay. Okay. So what got me interested in Salesforce? So when I was thinking about where I wanted to do kind of like my last internship, I kind of looked at all my previous experiences, and I worked in financial services. I was working at a tech company at the time. I was working at Microsoft. I was on their partner marketing team, and I was absolutely loving it. But while I was at Microsoft, I had the privilege of like shadowing like salespeople. So, sellers, AEs, and going customer side and really understanding like what it means to like truly be customer side is like if anyone who's on the panel who's in the audience and is interested in sales, it was great. And so I knew for my last internship, I really wanted to like one, stay in tech, maybe preferably like a competitor. And 2, I really wanted to learn like whether or not sales was for me. And so one of my mentors suggested like, oh, like you should look into Salesforce. And when I asked why and when I kind of dug deeper, Salesforce is really known for like the art of selling. Like if you look into like Mark Benioff, he was like, head of sales at Oracle, and he was like a true like salesperson, right? He wasn't like an engineer or anything. And that's kind of why he founded Salesforce. He wanted to build a competitor to Oracle's product at the time, Siebel, and he wanted to build a better CRM, and he wanted to do it on the cloud. And, I reached out to like one of my friends who was actually a Salesforce intern and was in the internship that I now did, which is a BDA program. And he had great things to say. And I was like, you know what, this is the program for me. It definitely seems like my alley. It has a robust sales training I'm looking for. And I think by the end of it, I'll know like whether or not I want to be into sales. And also I just fell in love with Salesforce's culture. Like when we say like, oh, like one of our values is like Ohana and being in a family, they truly mean it. There wasn't a single time in the summer where I didn't feel like I was part of one big fat family. So yeah, that's kind of like what piqued my interest and like what led me to Salesforce.
That's amazing. Whoever wants to go next can go ahead.
I can go. I don't think I have as much of a like concrete answer as that. I think like like my previous experience was pretty much like I interned at a very small startup last summer, and I did a couple of my own things, just starting my own projects. Like I had a clothing brand at one point, and so everything I had done in college so far had been very small scale. So I was mainly interested in Salesforce just because it was like a big company, and I had never really done an internship at a big company before. And I think the other thing was that of course, I had heard a ton about Salesforce culture and how really the like the yeah, like they use this word ohana all the time at Salesforce, and it's kind of like describing this family culture that you feel like you're a part of when you work there. And I felt that actually, like the moment I had my interview, like we'll probably talk about this later in the panel, but like the interview was one of the best the best experiences that I've had with like talking to um like people that were supposed to be like intimidating. Like I don't know, like interviews are supposed to be intimidating, but for me that they really made me feel comfortable and really like felt like they valued me as a person and not just a worker. So yeah, I was just really interested in Salesforce culture and just working at a big company, working in tech. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm glad that the interview wasn't as intimidating as most interviews are. And last but not least, Cristina.
So coming into college, I was not invested in tech. Ironically, I ended up at Carnegie Mellon. I'm from a really small town, so I actually had no idea what Carnegie Mellon was until my senior year. So when I applied, I got in, I was like, great, cool. I'll check it out, I guess. And turns out it was this massive tech school that I got into. And I chose it because there were sports. And the other liberal arts colleges that I had gotten into didn't really have sports. And I played golf for a long time and I just wanted to go. So I was like, okay. So just kind of rolled with the flow and then ended up there. And that's when I realized, oh my God, this is huge. Like there's robots everywhere. There's drones flying in the sky. Like I'm in this alternate universe. And so when I was a sophomore and I was applying to jobs, one of my friends I'm in Greek life, I'm in Delta Gamma, and I made a connection through someone older than me in my Greek chapter, who then connected me to someone else. So it's all about connections. And this third person told me to apply. She had been a tech writer. And I was like, well, I want to be a lawyer. So this is a really good, just a side gig until I figure it out with law school, right? Wrong. I ended up being in tech and falling in love with it. And I realized that my interests and experiences it's never just been one thing. It's never just been writing. So it's been kind of at this intersection of so many things, and learning is a big passion of mine. So bringing things together and making difficult things easy for people to understand is really powerful. And when you go into a space that's always changing and always innovating and making things better constantly, that's when I kind of transitioned into Salesforce. Not only did I intern one summer, I came back and interned a second summer because that's how much I just loved it. So that's how I ended up in Salesforce.
That's an amazing story, especially since you had your whole thought on law and now you're in a different field. So that's
completely
awesome.
different.
Yeah, you truly never know. That's the awesome thing about life and about college and like discovering yourself. But as you know, like it's not always easy getting into these big companies, especially like Salesforce, Facebook, Google. So how would you say you made yourself stand out through your resume and your cover letter?
Yeah, I can take this one. I think I won't talk about resume. I'll let everyone talk about that because I think I'm kind of passionate about cover letters, and it sounds kind of weird, but I'm really into cover letters because especially when they're optional. I think a lot of companies make cover letters optional, and a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, should I write a cover letter?" And the way I think about it is like, if it's optional, there's probably like less than 5-10% of the people who actually submit one. So like, if you do it, you're definitely going to stand out. So I love doing cover letters. In my cover letter, I wrote about I wrote a story. Like in previous cover letters, I had always written like, a list of experiences and basically saying, oh, I love your company because XYZ, and here's the things that I've done. With the Salesforce cover letter, I really tried to talk about how every single experience in my past has led up to this one moment. And I, like, one of the words in the job description of my role, it was business operations, but it was a very like communications heavy role. And one of the words in the job description was like storytelling as a skill. So I actually made my whole thing about storytelling. So I talked about how, my past internship at Forecast News is a digital media startup, and I really learned the value of storytelling and understanding your audience. And then I talked about how I took that experience and created my own clothing brand that was and our differentiator of all the hundreds of thousands of clothing brands out there are that we used creative storytelling. And I kind of baked this whole storytelling theme into every experience that I talked about. So I guess that's the advice that I would have for cover letters is tell a story that's unique to you. And I think that's, disclaimer, like, it's not like there's a specific formula to like getting into companies or like writing a cover letter, but I think like if you want to be unique, just telling stories is my approach.
I want to second Joseph's point. I think cover letters are so underrated. You can't just blindly send a resume. I think the percentage of people who get a job from just blind sending a resume is very low. So anything you can do to stand out, any opportunity they give you to stand out, take it. Write that extra essay. Write that cover letter. It's going to take you maybe an hour of your life, maybe a little longer, but it'll change the trajectory of your career. So really keep that in mind. Another thing that I felt helped me stand out in my interview was having something physical to show. So for me, I was applying to a technical writing position. I printed out my giant writing portfolio, put it in a really nice folder, and took it with me to the interview. So the minute that I actually got a question like, how would you describe in detail this step or this situation, how would you do that? So I actually opened up my portfolio and I go like this. Look at all these graphics. This actually won an award. And if you turn here in this page, I showed this, and you actually have something to show. And this isn't as, this can be applicable to anyone applying for anything. So let's say you sold something, or you coded something and you made a program. Obviously, I'm assuming I'm talking to non-STEM majors, but even if you take like a tiny coding class and you make this tiny little app, I promise you the non-tech people in a tech company are going to be very impressed. So anything that you come ready to show is such a power move in an interview.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's definitely something I should do more of.
Okay, so I agree and disagree with some of the points. So I'm going to be a little bit of like, what's the word? Like when you kind of go like completely the opposite way from what everyone else is saying.
Contrarian.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm going to play like contrarian view, devil's advocate. So when I applied for any internship, so when it was CIBC, Microsoft, and Salesforce, I didn't have a cover letter. And my strategy is a little bit different. You're right, anyone can send in a resume. There are thousands of people applying to jobs all the time. It's super competitive, and they're like people from target schools, non-target schools, people from really prestigious programs, right? People with technical skills. But I think my strategy is like, well, when it comes to resumes, like always make sure you're talking about achievements, right? If you can quantify something, quantify it, right? It's not enough to write like if, let's say you worked in like a sales associate job being like, and your role was to like manage the cash register, like so what? But if you manage the cash register and you improve customer service by X amount, that's like a compelling story. That makes a recruiter go, wow, right? Or a hiring manager go, that's awesome. I would say the second point that I have is like really like, and we'll talk about this later in the panel, is like my strategy has always been to like talk to people within the role that I was looking at or like at the company, right? So when I was at Salesforce, I spoke to like an ex BDA intern who like walked me through the program, walked me through what he did. I spoke to somebody that was in the full-time version of the program, and then I spoke to somebody that's actually in the sales role. So I had a very strong understanding of what Salesforce stood for, like what I was getting myself into, and like kind of how to like what was the key jargon I had to bring to the interview. And then like and this is like a lame like point, but I know everyone says like do your research, do your homework, right, when it comes to interviews, but like what does that actually mean? A really underrated like skill that like I've learned is a lot of these tech companies have like amazing CEOs, right? And Salesforce is no exception. Mark Benioff, if you ever watch him speak, is like phenomenal. He's a great speaker. I would like listen to his audiobook every day for like 3 weeks, like little bits and pieces around my house or on my way back to work, to the point where in the interview, at every stage, I could quote Mark Benioff. And the interviews, no, but like
Oh
I can
my
still do
God.
it. And to the point where the interviewers were like blown away and we're like, we have to hire this girl. Like she says, and obviously like I wasn't like, oh, I know every like one of Mark Benioff's like bad jokes. Like I could like relate it back to my story and be like, this point really resonated with me when I was looking at Salesforce, because I showed them um, that I really wanted the job and that I really did my homework and that I wanted to be there. And then the last point, going back to Christina's point about like bringing something physical in the interview, I 100% agree. So I was really lucky. A week before my final round interview, there was a sales club at my school, and they were doing an office tour of Salesforce. And in true Salesforce manner, they were like the most engaged student who asked the most questions gets like a swag bag. Obviously, you can guess who was the most engaged student. Uh, and I won the swag bag. And then the next week in the interview, I was this was like back in November, like fall 2019, when like the world was normal. And I had like, taken off my coat. I was like all like dolled up in my like cute outfit and like ready to go. And I had my like the swag bag that I had, and I brought it into the interview, and I had my resume into it. And, I kind of pulled it out. I was like, oh, thanks for the swag bag last week, guys. And they were like, oh, you were in our offices yesterday. And I was like, yeah, and one of the people that was on my like interview panel was actually at the office tour as well. And she was part of a panel like at the office tour. And so she was super impressed. And so those are kind of like my 3 points. I know that was like a really long-winded answer, but I hope it helps.
No, I love that. I also want to add on to your point about like knowing the jargon. I think that's such a good point, because like most people think it's about the skills that you bring to the company, but it's really like there's no like physical, like for business interviews, maybe for like an analyst interview, maybe you'll get a case study, but everything else, the only way for them to know that you're capable is just talking. Like it's just like talking interview. So how are they going to know that you're good for the job? Like you just have to be good at talking, basically. So like I love your tip about watching Mark Benioff, like listening to that audiobook. I actually did that too. I watched like an hour of like Mark Benioff interviews like the day before and then I like studied. I just like wrote down jargon, and like jargon is it's actually such a it's kind of BS. Like when you think about it, it's like it kind of is frustrating, but it's true. It's just like
It is.
you just like and as even for roles specific, like especially for product management, like if anyone's interested in PM, I don't know if the applications are still open, but there's so much jargon in PM, like for example, like prioritization and road mapping and like things like that. Like if you say those words in an interview, it drastically increases your chances of getting the job. Or I mean, it's applicable for any role. So like I know you already said this, Simrah, but I just want to emphasize it again. Like definitely talk to people in those areas that you're interested in, and just immerse yourself in that like jargon and like how those people think and how those people talk.
And one more
Yeah.
thing to add to that.
That's okay, Cristina, you go first.
Sorry. This is kind of like both of your guys' points. Along with, jargon and studying the background, be as authentic as possible. And I know you probably hear this all the time, but say good morning. Ask them how they are. Be friendly, be a friendly face. It's a huge part of our culture where no one at I've never met anyone at Salesforce who's a robot. No, there are no robots in this tech company. Like, you have to come in and be personable. Yes, know your stuff, do your research, but be you. I can't stress that enough.
No, 100%. Like, especially when you're interviewing for like a sales role, at least in my case, when I did the sales intern, the business development associate internship, you want to be as authentic as possible. Like, we always say in sales that like all the best salespeople and like sales managers, we all have like what we call like a BS detector. Like, we know when you're being fake, right? Or when you're not being your true self. And I just want to go back to Joseph's point, like every job has like its own jargon. So for instance, like when I was interviewing, one of the resources they send us, or one of like the values specifically to do with sales at Salesforce, is the 7 sales skills you can't teach, right? So it's like resilience, like leadership and stuff like that. Yeah, I think authenticity is one of them. You can just Google it. And I was able, like every time, like, I know a lot of people are like, do the STAR method in your interview answers, but I was able to work in that jargon as well. And then I was also able to like make it personal. Like, I made jokes too, like with my interviewers, and they like laugh. Like just the other day, I was telling an interviewer, I was like, yeah, I'm like running they were asking me like, what's a project or goal I'm working towards, and I was talking about how I started running, and I was like, I kind of run like a headless chicken, but we're working on it. And they laugh. So be yourself, right? Be authentic.
Wow. Those are all so amazing. Thank you, guys. I think a conclusion we can take from all of that is basically be personable, be yourself, and be dedicated. When you're interviewing for a company, do your research, do what you got to do to show that you're dedicated and passionate for that company. So now leading on to our next question, what would you guys say, like, what are some technical skills I should develop as someone with a non-tech background hoping to break into tech?
Ooh, I can take this one on. As someone who's not in business and like totally on the other spectrum of technology, you have to show some interest in technology. For me, I accidentally stumbled into a French class. I don't speak French. I literally stumbled into a French class, and ended up going to France with a group of engineers and designers and all these random people. And obviously, you don't have to go to France to do this. But essentially, I had to find my project, compared to this virtual reality that one guy was building, to this 3D mock-up of a Monopoly that this other person was doing. So what I did was I actually documented all these products. So I wrote about them, and I go, okay, this guy's doing this, it's really cool, and made it into a very simple way to follow. And this was my freshman year. So I mean, just having a curiosity about technology. You don't have to go and document, different projects all over the place, but maybe join a technical ethics club, or take a low-level programming class, or do something in some sense that's related to technology. You don't have to be a tech major. Absolutely not.
I can take this on next. Sorry, Joseph. So I think if we're talking specifically about Salesforce, and I can apply this to like, I'll explain with other examples. Salesforce has this amazing resource called Trailheads. So their Trailheads are like think of it like an online university portal. You can learn whatever you want. You can learn like how to use the Salesforce CRM. You can learn about all the Salesforce different types of products, our values. When I was interviewing at Salesforce, the recruiter was kind enough. I mean, I think he sends this to everybody, but like he was kind enough. But I really appreciate it. He sent me like a list of like trailheads, like 4 or 5 trailheads they can do. And they actually ask you in some of your interviews, like, hey, like, have you done any trail? So if so, which ones have you done? So I'd like highly recommend that. I don't personally think you need any technical skills. I think it's more about personality, the stories you bring, the people you talk to. If you can like figure out a way to get like an internal referral. And it's the same for like any tech company, right? Like if you're looking at Microsoft, for instance, Microsoft has certifications as well called like AZ900, which is like an introduction to like their cloud, or like Dynamics, which is like an introduction to like their CRM, which I probably shouldn't be mentioning because it's the competitor to Salesforce. But you can like get certified on that as well, right? And you can like bring that into your interview and be like, hey, I was really interested in like the technology that you guys are implementing and building. So I decided to go and get certified in it. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I think I agree. Like you do have to be interested in technology. I'm sure all of you are if you're here at the Tech Pod event. But yeah, you definitely don't need to know how to code or program. I feel like that's a kind of a big misconception about tech, that you need to program to work at one of these tech companies. The way I think about it is like, imagine like McDonald's, like, it's a huge corporation. It's like, if you want to work at McDonald's corporate, like in marketing or business or whatever, you don't need to know like how to cook or like have a food science degree. Like you don't have to know the product in that way. Like maybe you're passionate about food, but like you definitely don't need to know code and know how to actually build the products in order to work on the business side of tech. There's so many other roles that really don't require coding at all. So yeah, I mean, I would just reiterate what everyone else said. Definitely do Trailhead modules. Definitely learn, get certifications, take a programming class or two, just so you know like the basics. I took a couple programming classes. Another thing that I thought was really useful was Google Analytics. So Google Analytics has a free course that takes like, I don't know, like maybe 5 hours total, and you just learn like the basics of like data and analytics. I was able to talk about that in my interview as like a basic technical skill that I knew. I think a lot of business roles like want you to know Excel, so like Excel is another basic one. I wouldn't say it's like technical explicitly, but and then like if you really want to learn coding at a basic level, Python and SQL are good like baseline, but you definitely don't need to know programming. I would say just like, yeah, having a passion for tech is much more important.
I think also in addition to Excel, one, if you don't want to learn how to code and you want to brag about a technical skill, learn Adobe Cloud. Anything in Adobe Cloud and InDesign and Photoshop and that stuff. It's kind of like, I don't know how old you guys are in the audience, but if you guys ever played with Microsoft Paint, when I was learning InDesign and stuff, that's how I felt, that I was learning how to use Microsoft Paint. So it's a really fun, more creative side of a technical skill that you can learn.
Yeah,
Like
sorry, go ahead.
Oops, sorry, Yasser, but every internship kind of has like their own like technical, maybe like to an extent like technical skills. Like if it's like a consulting internship, for instance, like maybe you'd be doing more PowerPoints and heavy Excels. Maybe if it's like a marketing internship and like, or like an analyst role, maybe you'd be using like a Google Analytics or like Adobe Analytics kind of like software, right? Or maybe if it's like an analytics role in general, maybe you're using Tableau, right? Which is actually a Salesforce product now, because we acquired them. So I would just say like really like if you can talk to like a former intern in that role, like just with Salesforce at another company, and you try and figure out like what they used or what was their day to day, and try to like build on those skills, you can't go wrong that way.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all those points. And I think it's really important to hone in on the position that you want to go into. because that helps. I know, like, for me, I'm stressing about what skills I need to know, and I'm always like on LinkedIn Learning and YouTube, but it's like choose one thing that you want to go into and look into the skills that are needed for that field. And like Simrah said, also contact people that are in that field, and that will like give you a better picture of that as well. But anyway, on to our next question. So as an underclassman, what can one do if they want to intern at Salesforce the summer after their junior year? Any tips or tricks?
I can go ahead and start. Work hard. Work your ass off. And like anyone at Salesforce is just like, we are work hard, play hard kind of people. We put in our time, we put in our effort, but we also have we pride ourselves on our work-life balance, right? You have to work hard to get to places where you want to go. That's always been, my MO. But I also think reaching out, like my co-interns have said, and develop people skills. Be a people's first person. And that's, I think, the best way to prepare for that.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of like Christina's point for like being. I know that's like such a like typical like virtual meetings like term. Like kind of piggyback off of what that person said. I'm gonna piggyback off what Christina said about like being a people's person. Networking is like a skill. I actually dislike using the word networking now because I think it's like a kind of like an overused like buzzword now. So I'm going to say building relationships is like a very underrated skill, right? So Joseph's like, yeah, she speaks the truth. She gets it. Like, but no, seriously, like learn how to have a conversation, right? Like learn how, like when we talk about like being authentic, like it's easier said than done, right? Like when I'm making these like terrible jokes that like everyone's laughing at, like I didn't make these jokes like when I was in first and second year, where we call it first and second year in Canada, like not freshman and sophomore year. So, like, please be patient with me. Like I would come in with super prepared questions and I would ask them like a robot. But what I realized is like trying to figure out like what parts of my personality I can bring in. Like I'm a very like high energy extroverted person, even when it's like 4:30 in the morning. Like I'm like, let's do this. Like, right. And that was my unique selling point. So like learn like what's that unique selling point about you, right? That you can bring into those conversations. I would say like definitely practice interviewing. Like interviewing is also like an underrated skill, right? Like learning how to tell a story within the STAR method, learning like experiences. If you can, I would have people like look at your resume, like recruiters, and like critique them. When I was in like first and second year, I would literally go up to like recruiting events and I'd like have physically like printed out copies of my resume and I'd give it to the recruiter and I'd be like, I'd love your feedback, right? And they would have a pen in hand and they'd literally like do an actual scan there and like give me feedback. And so when they gave me those feedback, I would start to see the gaps like in my portfolio, like right, like like maybe I was missing technical skills, maybe I needed more internship experience. And just because you can't work, maybe it's a little bit harder. I'm definitely saying it's not impossible to get like a big internship right out of sophomore year, like work at a startup, right? Really start thinking about like, if you want to write those results on your resume, what am I gonna do to get those results on my resume, right? That like everyone talks about like the quantified results. So like work backwards. And that's what I would say. And definitely like network with upperclassmen that are graduating, ask where they're going, start learning about the industry. Like it doesn't have to be like you don't necessarily have, you could talk to people, but you can also read books, right? Like I read sales books like a total nutcase. And I joke like now after Salesforce, I keep joking that my life's not the same because I keep like comparing everything to like sales. Like the other day, somebody was asking me about dating. And I was like, yeah, dating is just like sales. Like all these people are opportunities. It's like closing deals. Right. But see, that's how invested I am in the jargon and that's how much I knew and I brought something to the table, right? So like that's kind of like my whole spiel about how to get to that place. So work hard, but this is how to kind of work. Those are things you can do to work hard.
Yeah. Everything is, and to piggyback off of that, I think, like networking, definitely reach out to upperclassmen. So the question was like, how do you do this as a underclassman? Like, think of like the smartest upperclassmen you know. They're probably going to be working at Salesforce eventually. Like, just like I wish I had done this freshman, sophomore year. Like when you think about it, like, a certain percentage of the people at your school are probably going to be working at the companies that you want to be working at in 2 years. And full-time referrals count for a lot more than intern referrals. So like reaching out to someone who, intern at Salesforce, like I could probably give you a referral, but it won't count as much as someone who is actually in the industry like 1 or 2 years out of graduation. So definitely like building those connections right now with people who are just older than you and are going to be in jobs in a couple of years is super valuable. One just like really quick concrete tip is just like work at startups. I think startups are like such a good way to get experience and like a high level view of how business works. And also just like building people skills in general, like learning how to work in a small team. Like, and it doesn't even have to be like a well-funded startup or anything super legit. Like you can just, like, I always talk about AngelList, but you can go on AngelList and there's all kinds of startups. Like there's funded startups and then there's like random startups. Like I could post my own startup on AngelList. But they're all like really valuable experiences. So I would definitely recommend, if you're a freshman or sophomore, doing a startup internship your summer after freshman or sophomore year is really good experience.
I also think it's really important to say, there are no startups in my city. I'm from a very low income, predominantly Hispanic city. And I know a lot of you freshmen probably don't have the funds to go and live in a city where there are startups. So what I did was worked at a local law firm of 5 people, unpaid. Every day I was the first one in the office. Every day I was the last one to leave. Every day I took it a step further and took my job so seriously that my bosses wrote me the most powerful recommendation letters ever. And I loved these, just some badass women who were lawyers, but literally do anything that involves a team. You can even work at a Starbucks and talk about why you had to work at a Starbucks. There are probably no but you learned how to communicate with the team. You learned how to get a product started from start to finish. I think any work experience, you just start one step at a time. So next time you apply for a job, say, you know what? I don't have a lot of work experience, but I did work at Starbucks. And here's what I learned working at Starbucks. And that's how you build the story that Joseph and Simrah are talking about. So take that into account.
Yeah, I love that point. Like no experience is bad experience, right? Like before I worked at all these prestigious companies that I'm talking about, I worked at an ed tech startup. And the founder of that startup went to my high school and she reached out to me. She was like an upperclassman and she reached out to me. She's like, hey, are you looking for work? I can't pay you, but like I can write you a recommendation letter at the end of it. And I grinded my butt off, right? 'Cause she was in Boston. I was in the Bay for that summer. And like I was like, similar to like how it is right now. Like I was awake at like 4:30 a.m. on calls with her, but like we were making it work, right? So that's what I would say. Like no experience is a bad experience. Like whether it's your student leadership, whether it's like something you started, whether it's like a startup you worked at, or maybe a startup you founded. Like, it all, as long as you can tie it into a story, you can talk about the impact you can have, and you can talk about the why behind it. Like that's all that it is, right?
Yeah, that's great. So basically work hard, build relationships, and take any opportunity that comes your way and just be able to speak about it. Okay, now shifting gears to your experiences, what was the highlight of your internship this summer?
Joseph loves this question. Okay, guys.
I'll let you go first, Cristina.
Okay, I'll talk about it. So Joseph actually did a really cool thing this summer and started a pitch competition. which was amazing. So I don't think there has been a pitch competition from an intern's level, or maybe there has, but it's been a really long time. And so I don't think they realized how far, or how many permissions they should give us. So I actually entered this competition. I have no business experience. I'm not in, I got a B in marketing, and I'm not a B student. So, that goes to show just how little my marketing business skills are. But I wanted to improve them. So here I am, Joseph Choi messages all the 800 interns and was like, hey, there's a business club. You should join this pitch competition. So I go, okay, yeah, sign me up. Randomly placed with the team. Awesome, really cool group of people. I just lucked out with my team. And we created this product and won. And we pitched to 4 senior executives in a live audience of 400 people. Okay. And Joseph just set this whole thing up, which was awesome. Winning was like my biggest, yes, I got it. That B in marketing didn't even matter because I won a Salesforce pitch competition. And we ended up talking to, CFO Mark Hawkins and COO Brett Taylor, which is like the #1 entrepreneur. He created Google Maps. So and that was like a very it's all Zoom call, right? But it was a very cool Zoom call. And if you want to read more about, my experience, I wrote an article about it on my LinkedIn profile. But that was definitely big high of my internship.
Yeah, that was my favorite part too. Getting on a coffee chat with Brett Taylor was definitely one of the highlights. I think the lesson there is just play the intern card. I had no idea I was gonna do that, but I literally just sent emails to people. I was just like, hey, Brett Taylor, do you wanna do a coffee chat with the winner of this pitch competition? He's like, sure. And that's literally how it happened. And then same with the executive judges, getting Mark Hawkins, the CFO, and a bunch of other executives. I just emailed them. I just said, hey, I'm an intern. I'm only here for 3 months, so I would really appreciate being able to have you judge the competition for us. Yeah, it just kind of worked out. And I've sent hundreds of cold emails to other people and nothing came out of it. But the 5-10% that works, it can be an awesome experience.
And it really worked. Yeah, definitely pull the intern card when you're there, because it's a fun distraction from their real job to host something like a random pitch competition.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the cheesy answer. I'm gonna say that honestly, I think what I love about Salesforce so deeply, and I think what's my biggest highlight is the people. Honestly, especially within the sales org out of the Toronto office, and not even just out of Toronto office, I was working with people in Atlanta and in Chicago. Honestly, the people, every Thursday we had a happy hour because Fridays we would end early, because our sellers would end early. Whether I could reach out to anyone I ever wanted and no one would say no, right? So going back to Joseph's points about playing the intern card, no one says no to the cute keener intern, right? That just wants to learn. And everyone's so willing to talk to you, especially when you're inside the company and you're just hey, I just want to learn, this is what I'm trying to do. I on a more personal note, I loved my team. My manager, Marianne LaPlante, is phenomenal, and I would go back and work for her in a heartbeat. And I'd say one thing that I really loved that I did was I always say this: Salesforce is the kind of company that puts their money where their mouth is, right? If you're somebody that's really passionate about diversity and inclusion, which is something I am to my core, when the Black Lives Matter movement kind of took a toll in June, and there was a lot of uprising in in the States and just across North America. Salesforce was one of the first companies to kind of be we stand with our people. That we had really candid events where Black leaders kind of talked about their experiences. We had people just really prominent leaders within the Black community that spoke up. And even just at a micro level, like I got the opportunity to lead like a book club. I think the book was So You Want to Talk About Race, with like my own team, right? So honestly, like I just love, like those are kind of like the main things like I can pick up, like just the people, and I just love like Salesforce's values. Like we live, breathe, and like die by our values.
I'm not in marketing, like I said, and I can totally vouch this is not a marketing pitch. The people are incredible. They are seriously incredible. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Simrah's point about no one says no to the cute little intern. They do in other industries. And I know because I've been there. I've been in other industries. I've interned at non-tech places. And I have been told no. Sometimes you are treated at the bottom of the bottom. And it is an awful feeling. But that just made me appreciate a place like Salesforce, or just tech companies, the tech industry in general, for valuing this innovative, new, fresh perspective on it. So when you're looking at the company you want to work for, whether it be Salesforce, whether it be another company, keep in mind that the place you should go is the place where you have the most opportunity to learn.
That's amazing. It seems like you guys have made the most out of your experiences. And we are coming up on time, so we have one more question. And it's, how did your internship at Salesforce shape your current career goals?
I can take this one. So like I mentioned kind of like in like earlier on the panel, like when I went to Salesforce for a very specific reason. Like I really wanted to like learn whether or not sales was for me. I wanted to be a seller. Like I loved their training that they had for context when you're in the BDA, whether it's the internship or the new grad program. Every 2 weeks you're doing what's called like milestones. So milestones, think of milestones as like an assignment. So this I jokingly call like the BDA internship like your sales MBA, because every 2 weeks I was doing, I know it's like lame, but it's true. It's like every 2 weeks I was doing something. Like I was practicing mock calls. Like towards the end of my internships, I must have done like 30 mock calls pretending to like be a seller and trying to get them to like have a meeting. I was like presenting like, and was an account executive to like a small medium business, or I was like pitching myself in front of like sales managers. Like every 2 weeks I had to complete like assignments, and I would be great at them. So the training was amazing. I really wanted to ensure like what I wanted to understand, like what was it like to be a seller, like in its truest form, like what I love being on the phones, what I love like the chase of like having a quota. And I absolutely full-heartedly say I'm so happy I did the Salesforce BA internship, because I truly validated whether or not sales was for me. It's so funny because like every internship I had leading up until this point, like I would always get asked like, "Simrah, like, why don't you work in sales? Like, you look like the real like salesy type of gal, right?" Like one of my first internships, I worked at a data science team. So like for context, very like intro, like a lot of the people there were like computer science and engineering majors, so naturally very introverted. Not giving shade to any of those majors. Y'all are lovely people, but like, and then I kind of come in and I'm like, "Hey guys, like let's get to the data." Like total opposite spectrum of personality, like super high energy. And I would always get asked like, "Simrah, have you like considered like sale? Like, are you the one like the sales or marketing intern?" Then I'd be like, "No, I'm on the data science team." People would be like, "Are you sure you're on the data science team? Like, you don't seem like a personality fit." And the same thing was at Microsoft. Like, my entire team was like, "You're good at your job, but you should like really consider sales, right?" And then at Salesforce, like all the things that I did at my previous internships that were kind of considered extra were so valued and appreciated at Salesforce within the sales org, because those were the exact same things the sellers did. I feel like I felt like I found my tribe, like my people. Like it's like a weird, like almost like I found like my cult. It's like weird as that sounds. But so yeah, that's kind of how like Salesforce has like propelled me. I don't want to say completely changed my career trajectory because it was on my horizon, but that's kind of how it solidified where I am now in my journey.
I think for me, having like such a drastic career shift, I found myself at intersection of everything. I was working with engineers on a Scrum team. I was working with business people, figuring out what they needed from the engineers, or just what kind of technical communication they needed. Then I went back to designers, and the designers would design things for us to write about, and then back to the engineers, and the cycle would go on and on. And so after a while, I realized that, man, I really love talking to all these different people and bringing everyone together in this, unison. And I love being a tech writer for those reasons and more. But I realized I probably don't forever want to be a tech writer. But I think it's a really good start to being in a managerial place where I can oversee this communication and content strategy of all these different groups. And another thing is, when I wanted to be in law, the number one reason I wanted to go to law school was because I wanted to do good for other people. I wanted to do something that mattered, something that would change people's lives. And you go to a tech company and you sell computer enterprise software and you think, that is like no chance. Like, what good are you really doing? When you work at a company like Salesforce, when they give you volunteer time off, when they donate billions of dollars to charities, when they have this crazy 1-1-1 model where they donate like 1% of their earnings, 1% of their products, and 1% of their employee time to doing good, when they stand for what's right, and you are, even in the smallest way, a part of that, you are still doing good for someone else. And they give you this free time to have the financial security and the work flexibility to go be involved in your community in a very different way. So don't think that just because you're going into a big company or a tech field that you don't have the opportunity to change the world. And that sounds super cheesy, but it's true.
Yep, I agree. I definitely resonate with that point about like meeting so many different types of roles. I had a similar experience. I talked to tech writers, I talked to product managers, solution engineers, and a lot of these roles I didn't even know existed before I joined Salesforce. And that, I mean, of course, like being a BizOps intern definitely helps me kind of navigate or kind of look at my career as, like business operations seems pretty interesting, but also just talking to so many different people in the tech industry really opened my eyes to how diverse it is and how much is out there. So I think I left my internship being much more open-minded about the kinds of careers that I'd be interested in. So yeah, that's my answer.
That's awesome. Thank you for your answers, guys. And unfortunately, we did run out of time, so we won't be able to get to the audience questions. But you guys feel free to connect with our awesome panelists and send them your questions or just get to know them some more. And to wrap it up, I wanted to say thank you so much to all the panelists for being here today. You guys were amazing. You provided some great tips, and it was really great to hear about your experience, and I'm sure the audience got a lot out of it as well. I hope it was helpful for all of the audience. And thank you to Vicky and Joseph for letting me moderate today. It's been an honor.
Of course, you did an absolutely amazing job. And like you sort of mentioned, big round of applause for Cristina, Simrah, and Joseph for coming onto this panel and sharing their experiences and tips with us. I think this was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of new things actually from every single one of you guys. So just wanted to thank you for that. And also, if you guys haven't filled out that spreadsheet yet, make sure to do so. We'll be sending out a copy to everyone who left their email on the spreadsheet for safekeeping so that you guys can network amongst each other. And I know networking or relationship building was a huge topic in this panel. So yeah, and also, if you're interested in entertainment or social media, we actually have a TikTok panel coming up next Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. And with that being said, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for spending your evening or night or wherever you are at the moment. Or I think for Simrah, it's probably like in the AM. But yeah, thank you guys.
It's 5 a.m.
5 a.m. Wow. Look at that. Look at that
Thank you for
dedication,
being here.
guys. Yes. Thank you so much
We
for being here.
appreciate it.
But yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And this is a Tech Pod signing off.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.